Hey, it's me, Deb, and I'm back with another Paint and Ponder. You guys had such a positive response to the first one, so thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to, connect with some people who felt the same way about social media, especially social media if you're a person like me who's not an influencer or certainly doesn't think of themselves as an influencer or aspires to be one. And there's nothing wrong with that if you do. But just for the regular folks, especially if you're a creative person, sharing your stuff on social media in all the different social media ways and feeling like you're just kind of like throwing things into the void because people aren't seeing it as much. So I appreciate your feedback on that. I was reading all the comments and responding. I'm really glad that you guys liked this format. So thank you so much. So today I'm going to be talking about how to fail. Specifically for me, how to fail at using a new camera and how to fail at Patreon. So I know that most people are talking about how to succeed at it. I'm going to tell you how to fail at it. Because I have experience, but it's not really failing. In my eyes, it was more of a learning experience, but most people would probably consider it a fail. So we're going to talk about those things and knowing your worth. I will be talking in the video, so I'm going to hush up for a second here. Life got busy and I kind of abandoned this sketchbook page. Unfortunately, the flowers are looking pretty crispy. Check them out. There's petals here. You hear that? That's some crispy action. Extra crispy. Oh, so sad. I should go to Trader Joe's and get more next week maybe, but anyway, here we go. We're gonna try this again. Most of this rubbed off. Okay, so we're back. We're back with the voice of Debbie. The voice of Debbie coming through a microphone. So let's talk about the failures. Let's get into it. Okay, let's just get it out there. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I fail all the time. So failure number one was a camera. I went ahead and decided after months of research and reading reviews and watching videos about people talking about how great this one Sony camera was. And I went out and I decided I was going to get one. I got a refurbished one to try and save some money. And I don't think that was the problem. The problem was, I don't think I'm a camera person. The last time I used a digital camera was, I think, before I got my first iPhone. So it's been years. And I forgot about how complicated cameras are and how I have the patience to learn certain things, like if I'm really determined. So I had to teach myself everything when it comes to like digital art making or editing videos or, anything like taking proper photos. I'm a complete like self-taught person. I taught myself basically how to make art as well. I did not go to art school. I'm determined and I will persevere if I'm passionate about learning something. So I assumed that would be the case with this fancy ass camera. Sadly, it was not. I dedicated about 4 weeks to try and work with it. It just wasn't working out, you guys. I don't know what else to say other than it took me an hour watching a tutorial, and this person really dumbed down the tutorial and went through. I think there were like 18 screens that you had to go through in the menu of the camera to set up all the different settings. Christ on a cracker. It was just like, that was enough to like, I needed like 3 days off from working with the camera, because it was like, it took so much energy just getting it set up. And I was stressed out. So I was like, you know what? We need a break. And at that point, I had only had the camera for a couple of days. And I thought, you know what? This was a mistake. I need to just return this. I spent $1,000 on it, which I think normally it costs like $1,200 to $1,300. And that's just like the camera with like a basic kit. It was a kit full of stuff that I didn't know how to use. And I had to research and learn every little piece of this camera puzzle. And it started to really melt my brain after a while. It shocked me how much it melted my brain, because I had learning how to edit YouTube videos. So I use DaVinci Resolve, and you can get it for free, and that's why I'm doing it. I might upgrade to the paid version, but that's neither here nor there. The point is learning how to use DaVinci Resolve, that was like, I feel like I should have a degree or something after I learned how to use it. And first of all, I do not know how to use it perfectly. I do not know everything. I constantly have to go to tutorials on YouTube and figure things out. But my point is that DaVinci Resolve and learning how to edit YouTube videos properly was a ton of work. I would compare it to learning how to draw digitally and working with layers. It's very similar. DaVinci Resolve and Procreate on iPad Pro they're like onions or cakes, full of layers, luscious layers. And you can thankfully hit the undo button a lot of times when you make mistakes, because you will. But this camera, I gotta tell you, I'd had it. Now, I worked with it for, like I said, about 4 weeks. This entire video here was filmed on this Sony a6 400. I think I did a decent job, but I'm just going to say this. I don't think that there is anything special about the footage I got from the camera versus footage I would get on my iPhone. So, that's what it came down to. So, let's talk about, that's where knowing your worth comes in, and what's worth your time and energy. In this case, this complicated, expensive camera was not worth the time and energy for me, because the quality of the videos that I was filming there wasn't a market improvement. It wasn't like, whoa, I'm blown away. I can see a little bit of a difference, but it's not so much that I think an average viewer is going to be like, well, I can tell she was using a proper camera. So I've decided just to go back to using my plain old iPhone 12. It was working fine. Plus, I can see the screen so much better than I was not used to looking at a small little LCD screen on a camera. So that was part of the problem. So I couldn't see when things were in focus or not. It was a pain. Also, it was heavy, and setting it up was just a whole thing. The battery, it felt like it lasted for about 15 to 20 minutes. I was constantly changing batteries and charging them. And that's where I just gotten to the point where I was like, if this is what it's going to take to film a video with this camera, I'm never going to make content. It's a pain in the ass. So I knew that it wasn't worth my time and energy. So I returned it. I returned that little bastard. Yes, I did. And the batteries and the SD card, the whole thing, returned it. It was just, I had such a miserable experience using it. But I'm glad I did it, because at least now I know that at this point, I just am not interested in working with a professional camera. So that's my camera fail story. I hope you didn't get bored. So a lot of what I've done in all of my work has been working with what I have at the time. And I think it's really important for anyone, whether they're starting a business, starting an art practice, starting anything. It's not about the fancy equipment. It's working with what you have at that time. And that's just what it boils down to. I don't know what else to say. So let's talk about Patreon. I recently decided that I was no longer going to do Patreon. And this was a weird, tough decision to make because I had committed myself to, I made it like a deal with myself. Like, let's open a Patreon. You've been thinking about it for about a year and a half. Let's just do it. Let's open the Patreon. Let's see if people actually are interested and show up. And I really thought of it. I knew I wasn't going to go making money, making a living off of Patreon. That wasn't the point in starting it. The point of it was, let's start it, and then hopefully within a year or two, I'm making enough to have a little bit of a passive income. And also, I was just really interested in building like an art community there. And it just wasn't panning out. So this is my 7th month. So at this time, it's going to only open for a couple more days. And I've had 4 wonderful patrons over that time. And I have 2 currently. And so first of all, Miranda, Christine, Kathy, Beth, thank you so much for supporting me. All that you have, when you have. It really is so appreciated. It really is. It warmed my heart so much that anyone was interested. So I mean, it meant a lot to me that they came and supported me. But the truth is, if you don't have a big audience, I mean, you're just not gonna get a bunch of people interested in becoming a patron. And but the other part of it was, like, I was hoping that later on it would become profitable at some point. I knew it would take a while, like a long while, like a year or 2. But I was making physical rewards, so like art prints and stickers, and putting out a monthly vlog that was exclusive to Patreon. But the thing is that I was putting in about 25 to 35 hours of work every month, which it was work I really enjoyed doing. I loved making the art print and sticker. I got a big kick out of that. I enjoyed making the videos. We started doing a monthly art prompt, and I thought that would be really cool. We opened up a Discord. But when it came down to it, I was making something like, I think 20 at the most, I was making $25, I think, in a month. And that's gross. Not gross, like, ew. Like, that was gross before Patreon takes their cut. So let's say I was making about $20. And for the amount of, like I said, 25 to 35 hours of work, I was realizing I was getting really burnt out. And as much as I loved making this special, content just for Patreon, I realized I was like really killing myself. I was using up all my energy. Not all of it, but I was using up a ton of energy that I really didn't have to spend. If I was making a couple $1,000s on Patreon doing that amount of work, there'd be no question that it would be more than worth it. But especially when I was doing the physical rewards, I was spending like $70 to $80 getting the prints made, and then the stickers would cost me about $25, $30. So I was spending about $100 a month just on the physical rewards. So then I put a break on that because I'm like, you know what? I only have one patron at this time that wants physical rewards. And the physical rewards tier was $15 to get a print and a sticker. So when you only have $15 coming in, when you're spending $100 that's going out, I mean, obviously, I was in an $85 deficit every month. So I was in the red. But I just enjoyed doing it so much. I was like, suck it up, do it. And if you need to, this is me talking to myself, if I need to, I would close down the physical reward part. And then I would just have just digital content. Well, I realized that just wasn't going to work either. Because editing a video, because I put out a video, kind of like this. So I would spend 16 to 20 hours editing a video because I don't know where the time goes when you're editing, but man, it goes. It disappears. If you're a YouTuber and you edit videos like this, you get it. But it's hard to imagine when you've never done it before how long it takes to edit a video. But even though I like doing the editing and all that, it is a big chunk of your time. And, I work full time. I have 3 kids. It's a lot. So I just came to the realization. I said that I was going to give myself 1 year on Patreon, put my heart and soul into it. And the worst case scenario, I was like, I'll walk away with I'll have 12 exclusive videos that I could always publish to YouTube at some point. And if none of these physical rewards sell, I can always put them in my shop. It's like, I really thought of it like there's no real loss. But what I didn't count was the loss of my time and energy. And that I was starting to burn myself out, which you can do even when you love what you're doing. So that was when I had to really question, like, is this worth my time and energy? And when I got really honest with myself at month 7 and decided it is not worth my time and energy, and coming to the realization that I really want to focus more on what can I offer the public. So in order to grow this YouTube channel, for example, I'm going to need to put out more content. And if I spend, 25 to 30 hours working on content that's only for 4 individuals that are paying to see it, the rest of the world is missing out. You know what I mean? So I realized that I need to just put stuff out on YouTube, put stuff in my shop, and maybe revisit Patreon in the future, but only if there were a real interest in it, because it is a lot of work. So anyone that has a Patreon and they're active in it, because I'm a patron to a lot of creators, podcasters and artists, and I'm so impressed by the amount of work and dedication they put into it. I love to support creators on Patreon. It's just like, so much so, I spent way too much last year, and I've had to cut back this year. But, if you didn't know, making pledges on Patreon, if you're a patron to anybody, is a tax write-off. So, because technically it's a donation. So I do write it off on my taxes for business. But, so Patreon for me was a real learning experience. I'm so glad that I tried it. I have no regrets at all about doing it, because I actually have a backlog of content now that I can start publishing to YouTube. So nothing was lost. And if anything, I learned more about what to put my time and energy into. And I don't know if this is going to be helpful to anyone. I'd love to know something that you've dealt with, like that you realized just wasn't worth your time anymore. Not that these things were not worth my time. It was, coming to the realization that I was like, I'm killing myself doing this. And for what? What is this adding to my life or anybody else's? Like, it was just one of those moments. And especially with the camera, I was like, really? Is this how we want to lose our mind? No, it's not worth it. So I'd love to know if there's something else you've dealt with like that, because I think I'm just getting a little more, not full of words, apparently, a little quicker to realize when I'm pushing myself and when it's just like not worth it anymore, you know? And if you've made it to the end of this video, I think chances are you might like this channel. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a possibility. And maybe subscribe, maybe. It's just a thought. I mean, I'm not going to force you to. I can't do anything. It won't cost you any more than like tapping the subscribe button, maybe the bell. So just make sure, just, you know, it'll take you 2 seconds. That's all I'm saying. So, oh, closing thoughts. Last week I put out a sketchbook tour. I was talking about how people were using this as a sponge and not a phone because I'm filming on my phone. How they use their phones as a microphone now. I was like, I really was like curious, like what's with the trend? I saw Fran do it, and then I saw a bunch of other people start doing it. I'm like, is the sound better on the phone? I was like, I never saw anybody do this before Fran, that is. But then it was everywhere. So I was just curious what the trend was. And the funny thing is that when I was editing that video, I found out that my microphone had somehow disconnected from my phone. So the entire sketchbook tour voiceover was just my terrible phone audio. So, my apologies. But I thought that was really funny and ironic. But it was fitting, wasn't it? Thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you have a great week, month, maybe the next decade. Have a great decade, a great life. Okay, I want the best for you. All right, well, have a lovely day, and I bid you adieu. Bye. I have no cool way to say goodbye, so...